as a parkland, and that our amount, Matilda, did our amount of parkland, developed parkland go up with the Frisbee Park? Is that enough?
Yes. Yeah, everything that's developed gets added in.
All right.
That changes the numbers.
We don't need to have it for tonight's discussion, but perhaps you could put together an email for us on what that threshold is. I'm sure it's not just mowing the field out there at the Three Sisters property, and we can consider that now developed, but whether it's putting up a basketball hoop or whatever, I'd like to look at that, because that's an additional factor that then comes into the park's development schedule, that if we are able to bring in substantial acreage, we then are able to close that amount. And I bet there probably is a definition for what is a developed park, and I'd like to know that. Thank you.
It would be helpful too, because for a second reason, because over half of our deficiency is because of the Wayside, Willamette Wayside, which is restricted from development, and that's 64 of the 117 acre deficiency.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So
if we could put pathways through it and that qualified development for walking paths or something, it might be,
interpretive sign.
yeah, interpretive signs. Boardwalks. Yeah. Boardwalks through the wetlands.
Any other questions for the presentation before opening up the...
Well, I'd just like to comment. I really read this pretty thoroughly, and I actually understood it, which that's a compliment. Because there's a lot of data in here, a lot of data, and particularly where you gave us specific examples of the parks and what's developed and what isn't, and the examples of what the causal impact on the 50,000 square foot commercial development was very helpful in making me able to relate to the numbers, and so I appreciate that. It's a complicated subject that you simplified probably as simple as you can.
Well, thank you. We were able to get really good information from the city, and that made a big difference. So,
Thanks, Rich. Okay, so with that, I will open the public testimony portion of the hearing. If there's anybody that'd like to come up and make a comment or ask a question, now is your time. Oh, sorry. Proponents for this. Thank you, Kim. Any opponents to what we're talking about this evening? All right, so I'm supposing then that there's no rebuttals either. So I will close our public testimony. Any other questions by the hearing body at this point? Discussion.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I would like to put a resolution on the table, and then you could have discussion on the resolution.
Okay.
If that's appropriate. I would move adoption of resolution number 1149, a resolution amending the methodologies and fees for transportation and parks system development charges.
Thank you, Rich.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. All right, so it has been moved by Councilor Ayers and seconded by Councilor Parker. The resolution 1149, amending the methodologies and fees for transportation and park system development charges. Any discussion?
I just, a quick comment. The last new home that I built for myself was in one of the cities that was mentioned, and it was 15 years ago, and I paid at that time for park system development charges more than 15 years ago in that town than the system development charges here in Canby. So they're still on a relative scale for development in the general metropolitan area of Oregon. They're still pretty modest.
So I'm sorry if I'm going out of school here with another question to Rich's point. Do we build in a incremental increase, or is this something that we will revisit again in 5 years?
We will recommend in our reports that you index these to inflation basically every year and increase them by inflation. The law allows you to do that annually as long as it's provided for So, yeah, you have been doing that.
Much better idea.
Yes.
And I'll point out, too, that a number of years ago, Canby didn't do that and didn't raise the fees 1% or 2%, whatever the incremental part was, for several years. And so when it came time to pay the piper, the jump was dramatic. And so I think we've pretty regularly revisited these fees on at least a semi-annual, if not annual basis.
I remember that
Or bi-annual.
conversation when you and I first got on the council. There was a few that were a big jump that caused some,
But it's just
Some
like
pain and
utility
suffering.
rates, you know, if you don't keep your water rates moving, or electric or telephone or whatever it might be, at a fairly modest, consistent basis, when you have to make the really big change, it's hard. It's really hard on the people to accept, and yet it is an appropriate charge. But it's just hard when it's a 20% increase instead of a 2%.
all right, if there's no other comment, I will, I guess, ask for the vote on our resolution here.
And you do that by saying,
All of them, thank you.
Any particular words you'd like to say?
That's a good question. Let's see, let me come up with a new phrase this evening. All those in favor of the resolution before us?
aye.
All right, opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Do you want to-
I want to be entertaining, thank you very much. Okay, moving in, new business, there's none listed. We'll move on. City Administrator's business and staff reports.
I've got a couple of items related to recognition of a couple of employees. And the first one is, there's a couple for Amanda Zyber. Amanda was given an award by Bullard Law, Aiken Blitz, an attorney that represents cities. And he's dealt with Amanda over the past several years, even when she was in Sherwood, over union issues and negotiations. So she went to their December dinner, and they gave her a special award as a friend of public service and safety in the state of Oregon. And I'd like to read just a little. It says, because of her dedication and professionalism when dealing with personnel issues is the reason they gave her this award. And Mr. Blitz said that he has been representing cities and departments for over 30 years, and that Amanda was uncommonly supportive and aware of critical public safety considerations. He also knew Amanda was instrumental and supportive of the planning and construction of our new facility. So it was quite an honor. It's a quarterly dinner that they go to, and he wanted to give her special recognition. And that kind of leads into the second one. In July, Amanda went to a 2-day intensive class on project management and was given her certificate of completion from the American Academy of Project Management. She said she was in the class with some very project manager types, and they kind of discounted her because she was, they thought, HR. Amanda, being somewhat competitive, decided that she would smoke all these guys, and she did. And so anyway, she's pretty proud of this because of the fact that it's not her background, but she's really interested in the project management field after working with the police department, or the police facility. And the other recognition is for Penny Hummel. Penny applied for a grant from the Public Library Association to go to a leadership academy that they're having in Chicago, March 5th through the 8th. And there was 163 applicants, 24 slots, and she got one.
Good.
So, I mean, that's fully paid for, grant funded, and so I think that says a lot about either her grant writing and application writing skills or her professional skills, and I prefer to believe professional skills, obviously. So I just want to let the council know that we have staff out there doing stuff and getting recognized for it.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think those are both terrific. On our deputy city administrator, then, would you say that those two certificates then make her even more qualified to step in as city administrator if we ever have a vacancy?
No. Absolutely. Thanks for
question,
asking.
Your Honor.
Well, after that uncomfortable question.
Put you on the spot, yeah.
Anything else from either?
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It's now our second opportunity for citizen input, and I'm seeing head shakes and no one running up, so I will turn it over to Kim for action review.
You've approved the consent agenda and you've adopted resolution 1149.
Excellent, thank you. Joe, do we have an executive session this evening?
No.
Fantastic. I will take a motion to adjourn if someone's so inclined.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Fantastic. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0, we are out of here. Thank you, Camby. Good evening.